Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Explore Telepathic Communication with Your Animals. Learn techniques for establishing and deepening the connection with your beloved companions. My name is Stephen Dunn. I'm the founder and CEO of the Shift Network, and I really love what I do when I get to explore new areas which I don't know as much about. And animal communication is one of those. I think all of us have an intuitive feeling that we can communicate in a deeper way with animals, but there are actually a whole path and practices that allow you to do that in a very sustainable and powerful way. And we're going to get to explore this with one of the pioneers in this arena. Her name is Joan Ranquet, and she's an animal communicator. She's a TEDx speaker, Hay House and Sounds True author, educator, and animal parent. So Joan, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Great. Well, I want to let everyone know up front, we're going to have this time together. We're going to learn some powerful practices, and we're going to have a much deeper dive with Joan in a brand new program coming up, all on telepathic communication and energy healing with your animals. So Joan, let's begin our journey today with a little bit about your journey into this work, because I think there's probably some backstories that led into why you've made this your life's work. So why don't you share a bit about communicating with animals and why it became such a focal point for you?
I grew up with animals, a lot of animals, but I probably said horse before I said mom or dad. I was really in love with horses and a lot of other animals, but particularly I loved horses. And so I won a horse when I was 7, which my parents couldn't believe. And at some point they, much to my chagrin, we had to let that horse go, but there was a promise that I would get another horse, and it's just led to a lifetime of having horses. So at about 10, I got another horse, and I was very, very connected, but I didn't necessarily feel like I heard words. I certainly understood feelings, but I wouldn't have said that I did animal communication at that point. So cut to, I'm in my 20s, and my sister had just died, and I end up getting another horse. And this was my first horse as an adult, and I would say that she was truly this horse became like a soulmate. And I didn't really know you could have a soulmate animal, but there I was in my 20s with a soulmate horse. And somebody, and this is really dating myself, this was the late 80s, had somebody come out, an animal communicator come out and communicate with our horses. So I, of course, signed up, and I was probably the first one. And then I followed the woman around all day and listened to every single communication with all the other horses. But the thing that struck me the most was how accurate she was. She knew things that she couldn't have known. And the second thing that was long, that held, that was sustainable, if you will, was how connected I felt to my horse, and how it confirmed and affirmed things for me that I knew. I knew about the relationship, but there was somebody else kind of witnessing that this was true. The other thing that happened those days that she would come out to the barn was when she would communicate with the others and their horses. I felt like I also knew that about that horse, and I had no way of knowing that. Each time I was like, yeah, I knew that about that horse, and it wasn't something that I could have known. So I used to ask her, how do you do this? And she said, oh, you're already doing it. And I've come to understand that later. But at the time, I just thought that was only really for the gifted. I thought she was really gifted and that I was just going to be a client forever. And then something happened with another horse that I had. She was lame, and I tried to find the phone number of the woman that I had originally used, and I couldn't find her phone number anywhere. And I was desperate, and I'd had a tragedy with the soulmate horse. So this new horse, I really needed to get to the bottom of everything. And I could not find the phone number to save either of our lives. And the next thing you know, I discovered that there was a class being taught on animal communication. And so I instantly signed up for it. And I was pretty good at it. And so the next thing you know, I started signing up for more and more and more classes. I ended up studying with that woman for a year. And I'd already studied a bit of energy healing, so it was a pretty natural fit. And that was really the beginning of it. I didn't solve my horse's problems for a little while. That was a road that led me down to learning all about body work and a number of other things. But it did create a career for me. So it was, that was really the beginning, was just really kind of wanting that closeness and that connection and doing it for myself at first. And then being able to help others was an amazing byproduct.
What a fascinating backstory. And so let's dive into a little bit the deeper how do you develop this as a skill? And I imagine there's a little bit of a paradigm shift in understanding animals in general and our relationship with them, because I think there's a lot of biases we come in with culturally that are sort of see ourselves as sort of the top of the food chain, and that there's like a way that we sort of relate to animals often a little bit more hierarchically rather than kind of peer to peer. And I wonder if you want to speak to that in terms of starting to open these channels of communication.
That's one of my favorite topics. I mean, I think we're really kind of what I would call anthropocentric, right? Like we're all about us, and we don't, we see them a lot of times as a mirror of us, or like you said, there's been dominion through ages and cultures and everything like that. And now it's more like seeing them, like I said, I was surprised in my early 20s to think of like, oh, this horse is closer to me than almost any human. And she really is a soulmate. And since then, I've had several soulmate animals, and I've discovered that you don't have to be monogamous with animals. But I've continued to have, really close relationships with dogs and cats and horses. And most of my career as an animal communicator, before I kind of became a school, was all about really reconnecting people if they were having challenges. So yes, the world has really opened up in terms of, at least in this country and culture and in lots of Western Europe, it really has opened up as far as seeing animals as family members, seeing the domesticated animals as family members. And if we don't see that, we're in a world of hurt, because we've got, we're watching animals, entire species going away, like even cheetahs and tigers, the numbers are diminishing at a rapid pace. So, and then we also have, we have a bit of a challenge we're a bit of a throwaway culture. And so, our shelters are full, and, we have a lot of unwanted animals. So, there's a lot of healing to do here in order to take care of this planet. And I believe that animal communication is part of it. The skill that I would say that I use is telepathic communication. And when I explain what telepathic communication is, it's the transference of pictures, words, and feelings. What we're going to do in the class will be learning how to send and receive. And we're already pretty good senders, but we could get better. We're going to learn how to receive information. And so when we think about who we are in our household, a lot of times we're just broadcasting. So we're always sending and receiving, whether we know it or not. And when we slow it all down and get quiet and meditate and really listen, and I've got some steps that we do, then we're going to be able to not only receive information, but become much better senders. And as we become better senders, our household will become more in more harmony with our animal companions.
So it sounds like we have to kind of drop into a deeper resonance in ourselves before those channels open as much. So that's like there's a preliminary, almost meditative process to get to where we're able to communicate more effectively, it sounds like.
Absolutely. And when I see students not able to feel like they're not getting anything, dropping in is exactly the words that I use, because it is that sense of just, going to the most quiet place to be able to recognize that we're receiving information from somewhere else. We're actually always picking up on our spouse's bad back. Or I always say that people are going to the chiropractor for their spouse's bad back. We're always picking up on, like how much did we have collective feelings during COVID or 9/11? We're always picking up on each other. But we become very aware. And as we become aware, often we are kind of creating a protective mechanism, because I really only want to have the ability to connect with myself and those that I choose. I don't want to be somebody that I'm just always, that's the journey of the empath, is getting super quiet and recognizing I don't want to pick up on everything. I'm going to be selective about it. And in an animal empath journey, we're going to be selective about, I want to talk to this dog over here, or this cat over here, or this horse. And so we're really taking the time to connect up and find out what's going on with our animal companions.
So it sounds like when we're in a family dynamic, which we are with our companion animals, that we create more of a linked energy system. So you were talking about how your husband's back might show up in you going to the chiropractor. So that it's almost like we merge in some way with like the energy system and flow. So we're kind of that what's happening in us and what's happening in them also just naturally kind of impact things beneath the surface.
Absolutely. And Rupert Sheldrake wrote a book called The Animals Know When You're Coming Home. And he had done tests where he had time-stamped cameras in people's homes, and this was all over London. And he had people get up from their desk and leave work at a random time, and their animal at home still got up and went to the door like they would at 5 o'clock. So they realized there's a connection that goes beyond the home. So we're always in resonance. We're always in that field of energy. And one of the things I love to talk about is then how do we become the emotional leader of that? Because we want to be able to give them their best life and be kind of great guides, if you will, for this experience.
Let's say a little bit more about that. So there's a piece around awareness and becoming aware of the impacts we're having and what's going on in our system. And then you're talking about being a leader. So how would you sort of lead the relationship with a companion animal in a positive direction?
Well, let's say you're somebody that experiences a lot of stress, right? Let's say you go to work every day and you come home and you're like worried about this and this is going on, and you're mad at your brother and the boss was mean, and you are kind of vibrating that, if you will. And then you notice that your dog has anxiety. Now, your dog may have come to your home with anxiety to begin with. This is not to blame at all. But the minute when we become aware of our own impact that we have on our animal companions because of our own stuff, we're going to be able to improve their lives and improve our own. And then that microcosm, if you will, of peace resonates out. So to me, our homes are like little petri dishes.
Fascinating. Well, so let's go back to like, how do you getting yourself into the right space? And then it sounded like images are a good place to start with communicating. That was at least what pictures is what you listed first in terms of how you start to communicate. So maybe share a little bit about the process of setting it up, and then how do you know that a real telepathic communication's been established?
Well, one of the best ways to do this is a lot of animal communicators always use this example. If you were to tell your dog to get off the couch, and as you walked into the other room, you thought to yourself, oh my God, when I go into the other room, the dog's going to get back on the couch. Well, what is the dog going to do? He's going to get back on the couch, because they are always tracking by pictures, words, and feelings. And when I was going back to the example of somebody coming home from work with all of those, worries and stresses, that person is emanating all those feelings, right? And so that's uncomfortable for the dog. But animals also are always tracking the pictures. When you look out into the wild and you see a lot of antelope just peacefully eating, and then the alert button goes off, but for one antelope that recognizes that there might be something lurking in the trees, that sets off a wave of feeling. The fear flies through like lighting, a dry field on fire. And as that gets to the very last antelope, they're already gone. They are in a connected field of energy that, operates quickly. So at home, when we're walking through our day, if we're picturing certain things, then our animals are picking up on that. So again, going back to the couch, what we're doing is we're picking up, we're creating and continuing the unwanted behavior, if you will. So one of the things we could do is we could picture, instead of asking the dog to get off the couch, walking into the other room, it would be better to picture the dog actually comfortably lying on the dog bed next to the couch, if that's the behavior that you want. I, of course, have dogs on the couch, so I don't ever complain.
Great. Well, let's talk more about the receptive mode. So being able to receive pictures and images too, since it sounds like a lot of the animals are just naturally picking up what we're broadcasting already.
And we could do a little meditation if you'd like. So shall we just jump in?
Sure.
Okay. So what I want everybody to do for a moment is to put both of your feet on the ground and really connect up with the earth energy. We're just going to take a few moments here and breathe into the bottom of our feet. And become aware of the bottom of our feet. And this energy in the bottom of our feet is very connected to the earth. And so I want you to be aware of what are the bottom of your feet connecting to. Is it your socks? Is it the floor? Are you outside? Do you feel the grass, the dirt? What do you actually feel on the bottom of your feet? We really want to feel all the way into our body as best we can. So we'll just take a moment and be here. And now I want you to move your awareness up into your legs and your torso area, moving up into your chest, your shoulders. Become aware of your arms and hands and fingers. Be aware of your neck and backbones. Become aware of your throat. Become aware of your head. Become aware of your eyes and ears and nose and mouth. And all of your senses that go with your nose and your mouth and your eyes and your ears. Become aware of your hearing and your sight and your smell and your taste. Become aware of all things that are you physically. And if you have any aches or pains, I want you to go ahead, put those in a bubble and let those float away. And now I want you to experience being neutral as best you can. Physically neutral. And now I want you to become aware of any thoughts that are meandering through your brain right now. Let's just put all those little bouncing thoughts into a bubble and let them float away. And I want you to experience being neutral mentally and physically as best you can. And now I want you to be aware of any feelings or emotions, any niggly feelings that are still kind of hooking you. And let's just go ahead and put all those feelings and emotions into a bubble and let those float away. And I want you to experience being neutral mentally, physically, and emotionally as best you can. And now I want you to become aware of your heart center. And even though the color for this is normally green for your heart chakra, I want you to imagine pink. I want you to fill your heart with pink. Pink is a color for unconditional love and for the animals. And so I want you to fill your heart with pink. And now I want you to surround your animal companion with pink and create a little energetic bridge between your animal and your heart. And I want you to go ahead and get a sense of how they're doing and just connecting up with that beloved heart to heart. And ask them if there's anything they need. And then thank them for this connection and their continued love. And let's come back into the room. So let's wiggle our toes and wiggle our fingers. Continue to stay connected to our breath. and open your eyes. And here we are.
Well, thank you for that. Actually, we don't have a companion animal right now, but we did when our girls were smaller. And so I was connecting more with Foxy, who left us about 4 years ago. So that's interesting. So it seems like it can work also in spirit form as well, not just if they happen to be on the planet.
Absolutely. How was Foxy?
She was doing well. She actually was one, like our Sienna, who was close to her before she passed, has been asking to do, because we travel a lot, and so it doesn't quite work to have right now. But we were thinking, she was asking if we could do sort of like a fostering of cats, because she loves them. And so I was getting the sense Foxy kind of wanted to come back and visit through a fostering. Yeah, for a little while.
That's really cool.
So so maybe give us a little bit of a sense. I know everybody's got their own unique individual experience, but the kind of messages, information that people tend to get, and then how do you work with that?
So at first you kind of question whether you're making it up, because they might say, oh, I want more. You might have a sense that they're saying, I want more love, or I want more time, or I want more food, or I want more of the good stuff. But often, you'll get, as you continue to connect up with your own animals, you'll get a real sense of what's going on. I have a horse that one morning when I went out to feed, it was like 6 a.m, and she just looked at me and she said, help me. And I was like, okay, I'm making this up, because we still can always question it. And she kept saying, help me. And I looked at her and she looked perfectly fine. But I thought, all right, I'm going to just do this, look around. And as I walked around her entire body, I found that she had kind of sliced a place that was not really visible to the eye if you weren't looking for something wrong. And it was on her butt. So she probably was rubbing her butt against something and had cut herself. And, I was able to get a vet out and get stitches. But if I hadn't been listening like that, then I wouldn't have known, and that could have gotten infected. So sometimes it's as simple as discovering that something's going on, and you can either, bandage it up or get to the vet. Sometimes you discover something really deep, maybe they really just want you to know how much they love and appreciate everything you're doing. And, sometimes in the world, just having one being out there appreciating us can mean everything. So there's all kinds of things, maybe you're just reminded of the activities that you used to do, that it's time to get going and doing again.
So you're kind of implying a little bit on there can be an emotional healing too. So there's like a physical level healing, and insight into that. And maybe share a little bit about how there's some challenges, symptoms might be associated with something that needs to be resolved for an animal as well.
Well, a lot of times, one of the things that we humans do really well is we feel guilty about how busy we are, or we should have done this, or we should have done that. So I love to just say, what if for the day we didn't have guilt? So if you took the guilt out of the picture and then you did this connection, you might find a purer way to be engaging with your animal, where you're not always coming from a place of like, oh my God, I've got to catch up and take care of this and that and the other thing. You might just have a really pure encounter. The other thing is you might find out like that one of the animals is being bitchy toward the other one. And the truth is the other one is secretly bullying. So, you might find out little things with, intricacies within your household.
It's interesting. I'm reminded we tried to have a second cat with Foxy, and Foxy really was not on board, and so we did work with the animal communicator, and it was so interesting, the differential. Like the new cat was sort of like a little, kind of rambunctious and just kind of undisciplined in different ways, and Foxy was very refined, and how she talked about things. It was just sort of like this other cat doesn't know how to contain itself, and it was. And so it's like it just really it made us realize like, oh, how different their personalities were, and you could feel it. But it was like the communicator was just really it was like a level of sophistication of understanding interbeing dynamics that Foxy had that the new cat just didn't have. And so we ended up having to eventually find a new home for the other cat because it just was not working between them.
That is more common than not, right? Like people have challenges at home. So really understanding, like you said, that level of refinement is very powerful.
Mm-hmm. How have you seen how animals might be able to communicate something back to help the parents or children in the house also heal something, so they might be able to kind of, in a way, help heal in reverse. I would love any insights into that.
Oh, I had a story where when this woman had come to me because she'd had 3 dogs, and the middle dog died, and there was still a girl in high school. She had a daughter in high school and 2 children in college. And, they had this older German Shepherd, but for the middle lab to die, just threw their household into just hell. And the mom had thought that the oldest dog was still grieving the loss of the middle dog, the lab. And so what ended up happening through the communication was I found out that, yes, the dog was still grieving that, but also that the youngest daughter was really, 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 really struggling with her homework and that she was very smart. And the mother said to me, oh, the younger daughter, she's kind of our party girl. She, the other 2 children got, scholarships to Yale and Harvard, but this is our party girl. Well, apparently it really, on the drive home, it really hit the woman that maybe there's something going on there. And she told her husband about the animal communication, and the husband got the youngest daughter tested because they didn't realize that she was struggling with her homework. And it turns out that the daughter was dyslexic and just as smart as the other 2 children. And so the dog really healed that situation because the discovery of how smart this young girl was and that she struggled because she couldn't, it was all backward for her, was so powerful. And she ended up getting into an Ivy League school as well.
What a great story. Do you find that there's like certain sort of areas that animals tend to be more effective at diagnosing or intervening or being able to reflect back than humans are?
I think so, because they're just so pure about it, right? Like this dog was worried about and would sit with the girl, so we can watch it through the behaviors, but we can definitely watch it through the dynamics. I had a cat that I just lost in March, and she would go into my guest room, and no matter who, she would go sleep with them. And I would say to them in the morning, did you have a visitor? And they'd say, yeah. And I would say, is something going on that because she was such a healer. In fact, one girl brought a dog that had lost its leg and had been found, had been hit by a car, had been found, and they couldn't find the owner, and they were going to eventually place the dog, but she was fostering this 3-legged dog at the time. And the dog was somebody you couldn't touch, couldn't do anything with. She was very protective of her missing leg. And the woman had brought her to me to do some healing, some EFT tapping, and stayed here for a couple of days with the dog. Well, my cat went and literally just pressed herself up against that dog's crate and just purred through the night, purred and purred and purred. And eventually by the second day, I was able to do EFT tapping and touch the dog's face, which we didn't think was possible. So, and that dog got the most amazing home just not long after that.
That's amazing. Are there other things that it's important for us to bear in mind as we start to build this deeper communication bridge about like how we can sort of engage most effectively?
Well, I mean, some of the things to bear in mind are just very simple. Like animals really need us to be grounded because they can go into fight or flight in a minute. They're just wired that way. I always say that our superpower is logic and their superpower is instinct. And we have a lot to learn from each other in terms of, deepening our intuitive instinct because they know how to do that. And they have, they're kept safe because of our logic. But if we are the logical ones, then let's be grounded. Let's use our logic to remember we need to be in the bottom of our feet. We need to walk through the world really grounded because we can't make great decisions if we're not grounded. So that's number one. And number two is just really then being, connecting up with our breath and dropping in, as you said, and being able to connect with that instinctual, intuitive side of ourselves that they are gifting us with the reminder of.
Mm. When an animal sends us a signal or a picture about something, is it how important is it we sort of take action, or is it sort of important that they feel like the communication is open sometimes?
Well, I love that you said that because sometimes a request might be like, yeah, one of my cats might say, I'd like you to fill the house with mice, and I'm not going to do it. So we have to be realistic about what the request can be. But one thing about animal communication that I love, I've written a book on animal communication. I've written a book on energy healing, and I love energy healing. I mean, my new book is about EFT for animals. So I'm all about energy healing, but my favorite modality is animal communication because I think at the end of the day, once you've been heard, you feel such a sense of healing. All of us do. So when an animal's been heard, it may not go exactly as planned or exactly as requested, but just the fact that they felt heard creates such a sense of peace. And then now we're changing the dynamic already.
Fantastic. I think the stories are so fascinating and really paint a picture of what's possible. Any other stories you want to share about once people have established a bridge of communication, something that really beautiful that's unfolded?
Yeah, I had, this is one of my favorites. I have a friend named Frank, and he had an older dog. And he called me one day and he said, Joan, I think I'm going to have to put Christian down. And I've been spending so much time with Devlin. He was a 7-year-old golden retriever, but he was worried about the 12-year-old golden retriever. And he said, oh, I think this is the end. And I said, all right, well, I'll connect with him. And so the first thing that Christian told me was that he wanted a party. And I was like, I'm not going to say that to Frank. I can't believe he's wanting a party. But of course I had to say it to Frank. And the other thing I had a sense of was that he had a big cough in his, that his lungs were full, but that it wasn't something terrible. And the third thing was I really, kind of walked Frank through what Christian's hips felt like, because I could do a medical intuition scan and Christian wasn't moving as well as he could or had been for a long time. So I did tell Frank that Christian wanted a party. And he's like, a party? And I said, yep, he wants a party. So the next thing you know, I get a call from Frank that there's a birthday party for Christian and that it was just pneumonia and that Christian had gotten some antibiotics, had cleared the pneumonia, and they were having a party that weekend for Christian. And I was out of town at the time. But apparently what happened, and this is on video, and I've got pictures of this, they brought a birthday cake out to the party. They invited all their friends. And you can hear people in the video saying, why are we singing to a dog? And this was in the 90s, so of course people would sing to a dog now. Anyway, so as they walk out to bring Christian the birthday cake, Christian, who had not been moving the whole time, his hips hurt, got up, ran over, and howled as they sang happy birthday. And anyway, Christian died just a few months, or a couple, probably just a month after the birthday party. But he got his birthday party, he got his lungs healed, and he got to move those hips in a way he hadn't in a very long time.
What a great story. That just brought a big smile to my face, is the birthday party and how important that is. So yeah, it really just, I think that doing this work just opens up a whole different level of relationship with animals. And really, maybe worth reflecting a little bit on what you see change in people's lives as a result of having this, flowering of a different kind of deeper connection with animals.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the heart, there are studies that have been done that purring actually calms our heart down. Petting a dog calms our nervous system. So, the benefits are tremendous, of course, for having and, for deepening the relationship with our beloveds. And it's amazing for them, right? I mean, a dog gets to have a birthday party. It's pretty great.
Well, Joan, there's just a whole world of fascinating things that can open up when we explore this terrain. So I want to spend some time now talking explicitly about your upcoming program, which we're really excited to partner on. This is an area that I've been curious about myself for some time, and we've had a few experiences ourselves that have been really profound. And it's really great that this is opening up as territory that, as we develop our intuitive abilities and our ability to sort of communicate across the veil between other humans, get other information, that we really embrace our animal allies as part of that process, and so much can open up. So the program that Joan has agreed to teach for us is called Telepathic Communication and Energy Healing with Your Animals. Access the inner world of your beloved companions. You can see it laid out in detail at the URL psychicanimalcommunication.com, psychicanimalcommunication.com. It's a 7-week program. There's no prerequisites. You don't even have to consider yourself psychic. It's really just an opening to the possibility of this consciousness bridge with your animals, and how that can really enrich and enhance and deepen your relationship and really open up a new level of love as well. So Joan, I'd love for you to share in your own words the sort of the deeper why, like why take this journey with you, and how does it shift people's lives? And then I'll read out the module titles, and you can give us a preview of what's coming in each.
Going back to the idea that our household could be just a petri dish, I always say that animal communication ultimately could lead to world peace. So if you have an altruistic heart, that's the first reason. That's one reason. But the main reason is our animal companions deserve our ability to step up and actually see who they are, see what they need, and not make this some sort of an extension of ourselves, or continue to live in almost like a whirlwind of guilt just because we don't understand or we are too busy. Sometimes just taking that moment to listen, just one moment to listen, is worth, 5 days of playing ball with your animal companion. So it's really about just honoring the commitment you've made to your animal companion.
So module 1 is called Build Your Telepathic Muscle for Improved Animal Communication.
The very first animal we're going to talk to is my horse, Drakkar. And one of the reasons I love to start with horses is people always say, oh my God, I don't know anything about horses. And it's like, that's right. But he will communicate with you. And that way you'll know you're actually communicating with the animal.
Module 2, connect with the essence of the animal to address emotional, physical, and behavioral challenges.
So understanding the essence of an animal really helps us, see exactly who they are, who they've shown up this lifetime as. And when we see who they are, we can often use that later on to be able to help them if they have health challenges or behavioral issues. So understanding their essence actually leads to helping them more.
Module 3, confidently communicate with animals to understand their group dynamics.
Yeah, well, going back to your cats, really understanding that one was very sophisticated and one was completely rambunctious. Understanding that dynamic helps us adjust our household and figure out how we would work with each of these dynamics, or that dynamic between the essence of these two beings. So we're really able to shift our household by understanding these dynamics.
Module 4, assess the ecosystem of your home to cultivate grounded, balanced energy and harmony for everyone who lives there.
This is going to be so much fun because these are all things I teach, but not in this way. So we're really going to dive into like the blueprint of your home. What are the dynamics? How grounded are you? We're going to be able to do some energy exercises that ground the energy of your animal, of yourself. We're going to play with just really creating a really grounded household.
Module 5, build awareness of the body's subtle energies to gain insight into the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual life of your animal companions for a closer relationship.
So we're going to look at chakras, meridians, all the kind of invisible things that are going on that keep your animal companion running.
Module 6, energetic bodywork techniques to help your animal companions feel relaxed and well.
So we're going to look at acupressure and EFT, emotional freedom technique for animals. And acupressure really is one of the most profound things, and EFT is working with acupressure points. So we'll see how all of that works.
And finally, Module 7, best practices for maintaining a supportive connection with your animal companions throughout their lives.
And again, we're going to go back to the blueprint. We're going to combine everything that we've done. So we'll be using animal communication, grounding exercises, and revisiting that blueprint to communicate then with our animals and be able to make it better for them.
Well, what a fascinating and paradigm shifting program. And I know this is going to have just people are going to love this. And so again, all the details are at psychicanimalcommunication.com, psychicanimalcommunication.com. Share a few other things about it. So not only do you get the 7 live sessions with Joan, which enables you to ask questions directly and engage in the practices as a community, you also get recordings of every session's video and audio, as well as for word transcripts to work with, study, and highlight. There'll be weekly exercises for home and practices that really enable you to deepen into this capacity. And also his Facebook community to support you and deepen your experience, which I know is going to be filled with lots of great stories and fascinating insights. So when you go to the page at psychicanimalcommunication.com, you'll also see a number of extra bonuses that are adding enhanced value to your journey. There's a video with Joan and Ellie Lax called Animal Communication and Energy Healing at the Gentle Barn. You want to share a little bit more about that one?
Yeah, actually, one of the ways that I love to use this work, aside from helping individuals and their beloved companions, is in shelters and in sanctuaries. And the Gentle Barn is a farm sanctuary. And so we have used animal communication and EFT tapping, which we demonstrate on a sheep, I think a little sheep in this. But we share some stories in this where we used the animal communication and energy healing together and have drastically changed some very traumatized animals' lives.
That's a great extra bonus. And then there's a chapter from your book, Joan, Communication with All Life, called Decoding Animal Communication. You'll see that on the page. And we have one special bonus that's available just for folks who sign up right away. And this gives you an extra reason to tune in now and make your decision if it feels like the right next step for you. And if you are moving forward, then you're going to get Communicating and Reading the Energy of Our Animal Companions. This is a video teaching from Joan. Want to share a little bit more about that one?
Yeah, I love this one because when we learn how to read the energy, even with our hands, we can really start to change their physical life, especially if an animal is older or they've been super athletic and they're really sore one day. You can start to see where exactly it is. And I'll tell you, you can save money that way because, you know, you run to the vet and it's like, I don't know what it is, but you start to feel the energy field. You can go to the vet and say, it's right here. It's right here. I know where it is. And your vet will say, wow, that's impressive because it's right there.
That's amazing. Well, it's a great extra bonus and a reason to sign up by midnight tonight Pacific time. So we've kept the investment on this program really accessible. And again, all the details are at psychicanimalcommunication.com. It's just 3 payments of $128, or you save 10% when you pay it full upfront with 1 payment of $349. The course is going to start on July 17th and run Mondays at 11 Pacific, 2 Eastern. But even if you can't make those live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings and the community and the transcripts. And really, it's the practices that you can take with you for a lifetime. So I also encourage you to go to the page and read through some of the testimonials about Joan and her work. She's approachable, humble, down-to-earth, knowledgeable, and funny, the most brilliant, most powerful, most effective self-awareness, things you could do for your life. I honestly can't imagine what I would be doing to be more fulfilling. Joan has really been at the forefront of this paradigm shifting work and for quite some time. And so she's trained a lot of people. She has a deep experience and she really knows what works and is really a fabulous teacher for you to go deeper with. So if you're at all curious in this arena, Joan's a great person to explore further with. And you're going to be in great hands and you're going to have a fun new adventure with your animal companions. And all the details again are at psychicanimalcommunication.com, and you get that special bonus when you sign up by midnight tonight, which is communicating and reading the energy of our animal companions. So Joan, we're almost at the end of our time, just a few minutes. Any further reflections that you want to share with folks who are considering going deeper with you and really the benefit of doing this in their lives?
First of all, I'm so grateful that we're going to do this because being able to get people aware and help them move into doing this themselves is really going to help animals. When I think about, I mean, I hate saying it like this, but there really is a genocide in shelters. I mean, the people that are going to be here, of course, are the animal lovers that are interested in connecting on that level. But if we could really create a movement and model this level of connection and family, we can start to change the world and people will want to join us and do more of this. So it's really about, you know, finding the deeper connection, making that sustainable, modeling that, and expanding it exponentially.
Well, beautiful way to close. I don't know the exact quote, but there was something from Gandhi about the civilization can be measured by the way in which it treats its animals. And I think that what you're really speaking to is how we shift this dynamic and this relationship to one of like mutual respect and love and appreciation for the different gifts. It sort of has a huge ripple effect in our personal lives and society as a whole. So you've opened us to that possibility, and thank you all for joining. And again, you're warmly welcome to go further and open up new portals of communication with your beloved companion animals at psychicanimalcommunication.com, and you get that special bonus when you sign up by midnight tonight. So thank you all, and thank you, Joan, for a beautiful hour together.
Thank you.
Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Harness the Gene Keys to Thrive in Challenging Times, How a Fusion of the I Ching, Astrology, and the Human Design System can illuminate your unique path. My name is Stephen Dinan. I'm the founder and CEO of the Shift Network, and I've been hearing so much about the gene keys for so long now, and I actually haven't really delved into it myself. So I'm very excited to get to explore with you, right alongside with you, with really one of the preeminent guides in this arena. His name is Mark Bentley. He's a Richard Rudd appointed Gene Keys ambassador and a human design guide, and he's really going to illuminate not just the foundations of the system, but like how it can really help us thrive, particularly in the times we're in. So, Mark, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Good morning, Stephen. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Absolute pleasure, and really excited to bring this to the world.
Great. Well, I want to let everyone know up front, we're going to have this time together, and Mark's got a lot of great content to share, and we're going to have a chance to go much deeper in a brand new upcoming program called Understand Your Gene Keys. So we'll share a little bit more about that towards the end of the hour. So Mark, I know there's a lot you could share about your backstory, but I'm particularly intrigued to hear a little bit about what propelled you on the path to with Gene Keys, and why did it become such a seminal influence in your life?
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. It's always enjoying when this question comes, as it gives me an opportunity to reflect on the adventure it's been. And so when I was 28, I thought I knew everything spiritually. I had all the ideas of the law of attraction and the rest. And my ego was pretty strong in the spiritual world. And that's when I really was calling in grace. I was calling in something to guide me to where my next step was. And that's when I became a father, very unexpectedly. And that, along with about 2 weeks after realizing I was about to become a father out of relationship, I also had my best friend pass away overseas. His heart just stopped. And so at 28, this was a whole lot dropped on my plate at once that sent my world into a frenzy. And it really felt like the gods were sending through, the grace to test me and to help refine, my own spirituality. And it brought me back onto my ground, back onto my feet, into my emotions, into my body. And it was a very overwhelming and intense experience to have so much responsibility with having to care for everyone at the same time. And so from there, I was essentially calling out for help. I was screaming to the gods, help me get through this. And then as it went forwards, I discovered human design. I had my first reading, and that was when I first felt like I'd been recognized and seen as something that I'd felt in my body since I was a child, but had never really discovered what that really was. And that then led me to becoming more clear in myself. And synchronicity would have it, as I was at a law of time gathering. So that's Jose Aguirre's worked with the law of time, and the dream spell was something that I'd been deeply involved in, which is all around synchronicity. I was at this gathering, and one of my dear friends there handed me this book and said, I think you're going to like this. And I took the book, and it was this book right here. Well, it was an older version of it, The Gene Keys. And when I opened it, there was a reference in the front of the book for an image that was from the law of time, even though they had nothing to do with each other. So straight away, I knew I had to pay attention. I reached out to Richard Rudd, wrote an email looking for the connection. And from there, it got me to really give attention to this system. The more that I dived into it, I downloaded my free profile. It's called a hologenetic profile. And I started recognizing these words, these numbers, these aspects that were showing in front of me. And the beautiful thing about the Gene Keys is it's not a guide that tells you who you are. It's a guide that shows you the signposts to finding yourself again, to coming back to who you truly are in your own manner, to discover your own wisdom inside. And so what it gave me was a framework where I was able to take all of this intensity that came from the age of 28 with becoming a father and so much more, and harness the shadow in that, harness the pain, harness what I perceived as suffering. And it gave me the impetus, the growth to break through a lot of my limiting self-beliefs and really come into my own power of who I am. And so as I went deeper into this work, I traveled the world with Richard Rudd and many others to just follow this transmission and really discover, where are we heading? Where is this going? And as a futurist, I'm always looking at, how can these tools help us prepare for the world that we're moving into? And so about 10 years on, here I am, and still deeply passionate about the work and really grateful for everything it has provided me, for being able to become who I am today and help many others to find freedom in their own lives.
So great backstory. And I'd love for you to first paint a broad brushstrokes of like the bigger picture of Gene Keys. Like, what is it synthesizing? Why does it work? I know that a lot of people coming today will already have some familiarity with the Gene Keys, but let's just kind of really understand what's the foundations of the system first.
Absolutely. So one of the first things is I like to think of the Gene Keys, and Richard Rudd, the author of the Gene Keys book, would often refer to it as a map and a compass, right? And so what we're looking at is a system that is based in ancient wisdom. It's a synergy, so a synthesis of many ancient traditions. You'll see a little bit from the religions in there. You'll see a little bit from some of the greatest spiritual teachers of our time. And what Richard would say, and something that I've come to find is a truth in my own experience, is that the Gene Keys is a name that we give, a label that we give for a living transmission, for an energy that's actually alive and has been with humanity, supporting the evolution of our consciousness through the ages. So in that sense, when we're working with the Gene Keys, I like to think of them as literally a set of keys, that we can use to jiggle and open the locks of our genetic code, to discover the wisdom that's been hiding there throughout the ages, and to release the trauma of our past and allow the beauty in our superpowers, these latent gifts that are inside us, to be free in the world so that we can really weave it. So it's based in, you'll see systems of astrology. There's the I Ching in there, which is the ancient 5,000-year-old Chinese auricular system that was always used in the old times in order to find our way through change. So the emperors of China would reference this I Ching by throwing coins or pulling straws whenever there was turbulence in their kingdom. And they would use the feedback, the wisdom that it shared, to help understand what was going on and how to best move through that with virtue. So that's a bit of a summary. I could go on for hours, Stephen.
Yes, that's a great overview. So, I mean, the I Ching is a sort of a more divinatory. So you've got all the different hexagrams that correspond, and you're sort of, synchronistically finding one. So how's the gene key similar in the sense that our genetic code actually sort of has a similar kind of patterning as the I Ching?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things I love sharing the most in the workshops is this image that shows the codon ring of our DNA that you would find in a laboratory, and the ring for the I Ching, and how what we call hexagrams, these little lines that come together to create a symbol. And when you look at how they're built, they look exactly the same. And so we're essentially seeing that the gene keys are the coding language of our DNA. It's got the 64 different codons in the same way that DNA does. And it helps us to understand that, you know that saying, Stephen, people always, will go, oh, if only we were given a user manual for this human experience. And that's what I came to discover in the gene keys, is that we've had it for about 5,000 years. And it's only recently, since 1987, with human design using astrology to then connect the I Ching to the planetary movements, which made us able to then personalize that map and really get our own hologenetic profile that guides us to our own genetic makeup in that sense.
So is it that there's one primary gene key that each of us is most aligned with as a result of the circumstances of our birth and the astrological and synchronistic aspects of that, or how does that work?
Yeah, so one of the ways to think about it is, at the moment of birth, it's like our body takes a snapshot of all the neutrino field, these little particles that are coming in from all around different planets, the sun, and different aspects of the universe. And they imprint our genetic code with a certain set of keys. So when you look at your hologenetic profile, you'll have a bunch of different, what we call spheres, and each one has a different theme. So it's a key to a different area of your life. So for example, if you're looking for core stability, you have the sphere of radiance and the sphere of purpose. These are two deeply related to that. If you're looking at how your life is designed to be shared with the world, then you'll see the sphere of your life's work. And then you have a key there to be contemplated, that through the contemplation of that aspect, it awakens it within your being, and you'll begin to see it reflected to you around. And that's where you can really start working with it. So it's not just a mental knowledge, Stephen, from the way we can look at it and interpret it, but it's also a living transmission that when you work with it and you contemplate these aspects, they begin to turn up and really show up in your world where you can tangibly experience them.
Is there a predominant gene key or a set of gene keys that operate at different spheres of or times of our lives, or like with astrology where there are transits, or the different ones come to the foreground, or do we sort of use it for divination as well? I'm not as deep in the system, so I'm just kind of more curious about how it works.
No. Absolutely. It's a great question. I'm sure everyone's kind of wondering these things. It's I think as humans, with the unknown being one of the great fears of our planet at times, it's nice to be able to really see ways that we can kind of prepare for what's happening. And so with that, there are aspects that you can look at the gene keys through that lens. I'd say human design really specializes more in that side of things, but within that, the gene keys is the map to move through all of these changes. So there is a lot of things we can tell about where things are going. And I guess actually, Stephen, the best way to say that would be that within each gene key is a frequency band. So the key, for example, if we want to look at peace, that's the 6th gene key. Then if we want to understand how peace is going to evolve in our world, then we can look at that gene key, look at its shadow, which will tell us about the past of where we've come, which is a shadow of conflict, which I'm sure we're all very familiar with. And it will tell us about the future, and it will help us connect to what is coming, which is this frequency of peace and what that really means at an embodied level, as opposed to just everyone walking around with rainbows. But really, what does that feel like at these higher levels? And when we look at this frequency band, it's the gift frequency, which in the 6th gene key helps us understand how can we walk the path towards peace. And so in the 6th gene key is diplomacy. So in a way, it does kind of show us the script of our life. the story from our shadow, the feeling of oppression or whatever it might be, whatever fear that is, and the higher nature that's waiting for us in the future and the pathway towards it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So each has its own evolutionary journey or arc. So is there one that's kind of more primary and foreground for us for the full lifetime based upon our birth chart, or how does the constellation of, you described several that are kind of work together?
Yeah, for sure. So again, each of them have very unique kind of perspectives, but at the very core is one that it's often known as the vocation when you look at your profile, but it's called the core wound. And the way I like to think about this is I'm sure many people watching this have seen the movie The Dark Crystal from, I think it was in the 90s. And I see this core wound, this fear that we have. It's kind of what the whole profile is unraveling. It underlies everything within our being. And the way I think about this is our core wound is a shard of broken crystal from the this unified crystal. It's kind of shattered into these shards, and each of us carries our own piece of that crystal. And our journey through the first 21 years of our life is really winding that wound around our being, attracting the experiences that we're going to need in order to provoke our spirit to take on that wound on behalf of the collective so that we can heal it. And as we heal that wound, and all the other aspects of the profile are essentially doing the preparation work to bring that in, we spend our life healing that and integrating that and unwinding that wound from around our DNA. And as we do so, our DNA begins to expand and we begin to emit these photons, this light into the world. And then we can share our vocation, the higher nature of our core wound. And so in that sense, to answer your question, I would say that is probably where I'd pin it. But I would also say that I would warn against rushing towards your core wound and trying to unlock that straight away, that it's a process and it's a journey. And your profile, your hologenetic profile, maps that journey out to a permanent awakening of your heart over time.
Great explanation there. So does this help us navigate the times we're in? I know we want to talk a little bit about some of the more prophetic understanding in the gene keys as well, of like the macro conditions that we find ourselves in and how to navigate them.
Yeah, for sure. So the most beautiful thing that the gene keys has given me is the ability to become truly accountable for my own existence on this planet. I was able to witness where I was playing the victim, witness where I was projecting outwardly to offset that sense of weight of responsibility and fear of responsibility. And it allowed me to be able to understand that in every conflict, in every challenge, in every suffering, it takes two to tango. So during these times, our relationships are being tested. Our faith is being tested, and it's really empowering to be able to have a framework to understand what are my defense mechanisms. And so this is the way I see the shadow frequencies of your Gene Keys profile is you get to see your set of defense mechanisms that genetically you have inbuilt to survive hard times where there's real danger around. And as we move through this great transformation, I'm sure everyone's noticed the world is rapidly mutating. And that kind of change can create a feeling of turbulence. It can create that feeling of anxiety and fear and maybe depression. It manifests in different ways for people. And essentially, it's the fight, flight kind of, play dead response of the body when we feel fear. And as we move into this world, we have an amazing opportunity, Stephen, with all the new technology, with everything happening, with the breaking down of all the old systems. We have an incredible opportunity to recreate our reality together. But in order to do so, we need to get grounded in ourselves, gain core stability so that whenever we come up against a challenge, we're not getting rocked, we're not getting rocked into fear and reactive natures, but rather we're able to breathe, ground and center, and then from a conscious, aware place, take the next step towards where our heart calls us. So I really see the gene keys as one of the most powerful tools to regain core stability and accountability in the way that we relate together as individuals within a collective process. And to me, that's one of the most important ingredients to really thriving through the change that's happening.
Fascinating. Well, let's talk a little bit about the larger changes. I know there's some interesting kind of predictive frameworks too, in terms of like 2027, which I hadn't heard about from anywhere else. So it's interesting that 2012, that you're really considered more of the portal for birth, which we actually created a whole Birth 2012 series of events with Barb Marks Hubbard. So I'd be curious more about this sort of macro understanding of the cycle of time and some of these key marker points.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so 2027 is the new hot number, Stephen. That's for sure. We always seem to have something to move towards, and I think that's a great thing for the human condition. It gives a little inspiration to keep on going. And where this comes from is there's essentially, when we look at this, the 55th gene key, for those that want to go real deep in the book, if you've got hold of the book or want to get the book, The Gene Keys, the 55th gene key is the longest chapter you'll find in there. And it's the one that delves deeply into this timeline of what's rolling out. And so before we jump on 2027, it's a trinary kind of time process that began in 1987. And so there's many of the old school crew out there will remember the harmonic convergence of August 1987. It was I guess you could say, the love child of Jose Arguelles, who was one of the biggest names out there in bringing awareness to the date of 2012. So back in 1987, and this blows my mind a little bit, Stephen, when I think about this. In 1987, when there was no internet, there wasn't email and all those things publicly available, the harmonic convergence, this event that Jose Arguelles initiated, spread over the entire planet like wildfire. And there's reports of hundreds of thousands of people joining in for this collective journey where over a few days, they really focused on creating a harmonic convergence of the collective energy of people coming together. And that was essentially the seeding, the gestation of the change that is coming as we come to 2027. So that was amazing. Jose Arguelles was actually a big influence in my life before I came into human design, gene keys, and all the catalysts happened. And so that had brought me to 2012, which, as you say, I think everyone heard about, and a lot of people had a bit of a hangover afterwards when they realized, well, hang on, the world didn't just change on a dime. And I had the blessing, actually, of being with Stephanie South, who is Jose Arguelles' partner. And I was with her and a lot of the Mayan elders and people from all the different traditions and around the world had come together at a very special event in Palenque in Mexico, where we gathered together in circle in a very secluded area of the ruins there on December 21st, 2012. And I still remember so clearly to this day, Stephen, as they were drumming, and as they were gathering this energy and we were all around the outside holding the space, the rain started falling. This was early in the morning on the 21st. They were surrounded by the jungle and the ancient ruins. And then the rain started just pitter-pattering. And then as they drummed, and you could feel this almost like trance state starting to come on, the rain started pouring down. It was like torrential, and the howler monkeys were going wild, and the energy, you could feel it just moving through the whole space. And in that moment, I closed my eyes, and just for a brief moment, I felt and I saw, and not in a way I can explain with words, but I felt what was happening on that day. And I could feel these synchronic codes, this energy that was being brought into the planet and through the planet. And it was unreal. It was something that actually took me a while to recover physically. My body copped a bit of a beating from almost the intensity of the whole experience. And what I came to understand from that was 2012, people say often got caught up with the end of the Mayan calendar, but the Mayans had many calendars, and it just keeps going into a new cycle. But now we move into the feminine, into an unknown, into the birthing of a new cycle. And so then we can look at it as, if 1987 was the gestation of this seed, 2012 was really about creating, it was birthing what was being gestated into the world and giving it a melody. Each of us needing to now find our part of the melody, our unique melody that we will contribute towards a collective. And that those codes, that energy that came in, was going to take time to integrate through the grid around the planet and integrate into each other and into our communities, into our society. So that's what I believe we've been seeing since 2012 to today. And it's shaking up the very structures that have supported us to get out of fear and lack and poverty to where we are today. And now it's time to release that fear. Now it's time to move beyond that. And so that brings us to 2027. So human design, Ra Uru Hu, who is the one who brought through the human design system, also received this date and time. And when you look at the astrology, there's very astrological events that point to this time in our collective history as a very mutative process. So it signifies the mutation within our solar plexus and around our emotional body, and how we react and how we deal with the world is beginning to change from 2027 onwards. So again, like 2012, it's not a case of on the day everything is magic. But on 2027, it begins and signifies a new era where nothing will ever be the same again. And we are going to see that if 1987 was the gestation of the seed and 2012 was the birthing of that into the world, then 2027 it's like the symphony. It's the beginning of the symphony of our collective species. It's where we're going to start the journey as each of us brings our own unique melodies that we've been working on, that we've been honing, so that we can contribute those melodies into creating a complex, beautiful symphony that is the human species, and will move us towards unity, and will move us towards that future that we all can feel in our hearts, but can be hard to believe sometimes. And so with that being said, these next few years, as we come to 2027, is an incredible opportunity to really consciously round in with the whole world falling apart around us. Who am I? What is my melody? What is my song to sing into the world, into this collective? And how can I contribute? And prepare for 2027. And the children born from that time onwards, they're going to seem very different. So we don't know exactly how that's going to play, Stephen, but I got to say I'm pretty excited to be born at this time, to be able to actually be consciously experiencing this. So yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Fascinating overview. Look forward to hearing more about 2027, since I like to align with these deeper understandings. So let's go back to some of the gene keys that really are particularly helpful. I know you touched on the 55th, which really chronicles this larger cycle of time we're in, and I know you wanted to also go into the 22nd. So maybe share a little bit about why those two combine and are particularly important for us right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So these two gene keys, the 55th and the 22nd, they contain really powerful wisdom that is so relevant to the transition that we're moving through here, and in some ways underpin all of the gene keys. So the 55th gene key is essentially representing the evolution of our mankind, of this species. It's very physical, in the sense the shadow of the 55th gene key is the shadow of victimization. It's the feeling of being a victim of our circumstances. And its gift is freedom. So one of the principles of the gene keys is that within every shadow contains the gift. So freedom exists within each of us right now, but we need to just unlock it. We need to release this victim pattern, this pattern of victimization. Now, all of these shadows have served a role, but that role is now coming to an end. It's created the fire, it's created the evolutionary impulse to take us from these kind of prehistoric beings to the sophisticated humans that we are today. So that victimization pattern has been a driving force, and it's now purging. So we're seeing this come to the surface now and to be cleared and to be moved as we move into 2027. So if the 55th gene key is kind of the evolutionary of matter coming from the past forwards, then you could almost think of the 22nd gene key as being an involutionary force. So it's involution. It's coming from spirit into matter, where the 55th is bringing matter into spirit. So the 22nd gene key is one of my favorites, and it's one that I turn to whenever things are intense and it's, overwhelming or, whatever's happening. And it's the gene key of grace, and it's the shadow of dishonor. And what we're seeing is that we're moving from a world where we dishonor ourselves individually in order to force ourselves into a place in the collective that just doesn't feel like us, and starting to really trust in grace, to call upon grace, which is, it's this higher evolutionary force, this involutionary force. It's like spirit breathing into this now moment. So the way I like to think about it, Stephen, is it's like if it's like the 55th is bringing this energy of evolution into this now moment. And then we're breathing this the more we embody grace and the more we call in grace into this moment, that spirit is being breathed into here. And then the here and now moment, the Eckhart Tolle would talk so much about the power of now, is that in this moment, we have an alchemical cauldron of, the future of the spirit that is arriving and the past of the evolution coming together to create this heat that then gives birth to something really sacred. And so that's where, using the 22nd gene key is a powerful way of really calling in grace. And when we talk about grace, it's not all about the elegant swan. A swan, for example, it's a symbol of West Australia, where I'm from here, is our state symbol, is an incredibly elegant creature. And you see it with its power, the way it's, a swan just gracefully moves as if it's not even moving at all, with its powerful neck and just elegance in the way it holds itself. But there's also grace everywhere you can look. I used to work on the mine sites where, it was a pretty rough place, but I got to witness some of the most purest grace in those moments where a lot of us were holed up together for a month at a time in really uncomfortable situations all through the night. And yet, even in the roughest of men that I met there, I was able to experience these moments of grace. And, that's what really made me realize that this is not about a spiritual morality as such of right and wrong, but more as an idea of coming into integrity with our higher self, coming into integrity with our spirit, and bringing that in to becoming an embodiment and bringing our spirit deeper into the human experience, through freedom. And the more freedom that we feel, the more we move ourselves out of that shadow of victimization, the more radical self-responsibility we can cultivate, the more freedom, then the more grace can actually enter into our being. The more we allow grace to come in and help us to then flow through these challenging times and really trust in everything. And for me, when we trust in everything, Stephen, and we're able to just breathe into the moment and allow grace to move us, that's where we will see synchronicity go off the charts. And that's where our relationships start deepening, the intimacy starts deepening, and that's where the real fun starts beginning. So I'm really excited for where this is going.
So much wisdom in what you shared. Well, I think you were going to lead us in a practice as well. And so you want to tee that up with an understanding of the particular gene key it represents?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're moving into what's called the 52nd gene key. It's in the old days, Richard, with his original courses, it was the first key that you would experience. And that's why I like to bring it in whenever we're going into a journey with the gene keys, is this 52nd gene key is vital to the times we're living in and to attaining self-awareness and being able to heal and to evolve. And the 52nd is the shadow of stress. So I'm sure just in hearing that word, everyone watching will probably recognize that shadow pretty well. I don't think there's many people out there on the planet not experiencing a certain level of stress, quite regularly during our current times. And the shadow of stress then goes through this frequency band, which is the gift of restraint and the city of stillness. And so the magic here is that in every stressful situation, in all the tension in your body, the seed of stillness is within it, is there to gestate and be brought into the world. But in order to do so, we need to use our breath. So what I'll ask you all to do is you're watching this, and if the situation is not possible and you've got people talking to you, then maybe just pause this part, or you can come back to this later. And this exercise will be here for you whenever you want it. So I'll ask you just to take a nice breath and let a sigh out, and then just close your eyes. Just trust everything is okay. Let time be. And just using your breath, take a nice deep breath in through your nose. Hold it for a moment. And then release. And it can help to make a bit of a sound sometimes, the first few breaths. So taking another breath together, breathing in through the nose, really feeling your belly lift, and then let it go. And now on this third breath, I want you to visualize breathing that oxygen in like a silver energy coming in through your nose, breathing it down through your throat chakra, through your heart, through your sacral, down into your root. So I want you to breathe this oxygen in this next breath right down into your perineum. So that's that point at the very base of your body, between the genitals and the anus, where stress lives. This is where our survival instinct is. So now breathing together, let's give that some oxygen. So in through the nose, bringing it down into your base, and then letting it out. So now you may have thoughts popping up. Just keep breathing, breathing in, focusing on that breath, breathing it down to your perineum, to your base, giving that oxygen to your survival center. Let it know that it has what it needs. Let your body know, let your cells know you are safe. Maybe whisper to them in your mind. It's okay. We got this. We're safe. In this moment, maybe not in tomorrow, maybe not yesterday, but in this moment, I am safe. And breathing in, down to the perineum. Now just continue this breathing. Breathing to the perineum and then letting it go. And allow any thoughts that might be bouncing around in your head. Any feeling, I don't have enough time for this. What are we doing? This is just sitting here. What's going on? All these thoughts. Just imagine like you have a fishbowl in your mind of this pure crystal water, and see your thoughts as these fragments of mud, of dirt that have been stirred up from the bottom and are clouding the water. So every time you have a thought come through, just visualize that thought being part of that cloudy water and connecting in and settling into that. And then as you breathe in, with every in-breath, breathing down to your perineum, feel that water becoming more calm. Feel those thoughts beginning to get heavier with that sediment in the water, beginning to sink to the bottom of that fishbowl in your mind. Taking another breath, allowing clarity to return as the thoughts begin to settle Let those thoughts know. We have all the time in the world to get to you. But right now, rest. Breathing in through the nose, allowing oxygen into your cells. Breathe so your belly rises. Breathe with your whole body. Feel the cells celebrating. This moment, this stillness is always here. It is always with you. And all you need is to breathe fully, to breathe deeply. And from that stillness, no matter how busy your world, how frantic your workplace, how turbulent your relationships, this stillness is always here inside you, ready to be cultivated, ready for your awareness. So now, allowing that stillness, let's return back to the adventure at hand and see where we go next.
Well, it was a beautiful guided meditation there. And maybe you can share a little bit more about how each gene key can be a portal into a different aspect like this. So even if it's not necessarily prominent in your chart, that 50-second gene key could be something that sort of empowers each of us on our path. And so that each one of the gene keys is itself kind of like a skill set or a consciousness capacity that we are building.
So as I said at the very start, the 64 gene keys that are contained in this book here, they're literally like a set of keys to all of these aspects that we have talked about in spirituality. We've explored in so many different ways. And our DNA, so your DNA, you watching this, you have all of those 64 keys within you. Every single one of us, our DNA contains all 64 of those keys. And in a way, our DNA is the library. The gene keys are the keys to help you access that library. So depending on what you're looking for in your life, you can find it in one of these 64 keys. If you simply look through the list of the keys and their shadow nature, you will find the shadow that is directly related to whatever you are going through. If you're looking to bring something into your life, a gift that you want to bring in like stillness, then look at the gene keys, go through that list, and just intuitively, you'll be able to recognize what key is directly related to that aspect. And then through the process of contemplation, which is like jiggling the key in the lock, that allows us to then open up that library and begin to explore that frequency and bring that frequency into our being. So that's a really great point. I'm glad you brought it up, Stephen, that it's not just about your personal profile. Your personal profile is a unique set of keys for awakening. It's a unique set of keys for awakening the latent superpowers that are within you and who you are here to become. So that is your contemplation directly, specifically for you. But in life itself, we can work with every single one of these gene keys. And at different times of our life, they will have different relevance. And so that's where the 50-second gene key is the one for the workplace. It's the one for the busy lifestyle, for our modern day. And so it's a great key to go back to and to explore, to really understand what is stress? What is its function? Because it actually serves us. It's not a punishment. And when we understand how it serves us, we're able to help it relax and release the stress when it's not needed. So I hope that gave a bit more of an understanding.
Yeah, it was truly fascinating. Well, Mark, it's really clear there's just so many layers to unveil in this system and a lot of value to just keep exploring deeper. So I want to spend some time now talking explicitly about your upcoming program, which is really a great way to do that. So the program is called Understand Your Gene Keys. Unlock your DNA's highest potential to reveal your true purpose and thrive in a rapidly changing world. So it's really going to take our understanding to the next level. And you can find it laid out in detail at thrivingwithgenekeys.com, thrivingwithgenekeys.com. It's a 7-week program, and there's no prerequisites for this. So even if you don't have a deep familiarity with Gene Keys, you can still meet Mark exactly where he's going to take you. So it's really all about taking this system and applying it in a really constructive way to thriving in no matter what the outer circumstances. And so each Gene Key is like a portal into a new possibility for yourself, and to understand your unique pathway, and also these each as a portal really opens up new worlds for you. So Mark, I'd love for you to share in your own words really about like how does this shift somebody's life to gain these understandings, and then I'll read out the module titles and you give us a preview of what's coming in each.
So one of the things I've been really excited about bringing this to the world, Stephen, is we are going through, as I've mentioned many times already, one of the most revolutionary times that our recorded history, and this is my belief, in my perception. The opportunity that we have right now is something that I've been waiting for since I was a child. It's something that is so exciting with what is happening, but it's also so daunting. It's terrifying with so much change so rapidly, no external authorities to hang our responsibility on. It's really calling for us to step into our power. And so I put this course together with the idea that I wanted to be able to provide something to everyone who was drawn to this course, not just for those, because the Gene Keys is a deep transmission. It's something that you could study for lifetimes. And the more that you study it, the more life just becomes it, and life itself becomes the study. But not everyone can recognize that essence. Not everyone is called to necessarily walk that deeply into the path. And so I put this together as a guide to put together your own thriving kit using your personal hologenetic profile that you get from your date of birth and time of birth. So you can actually take these learnings that I'm going to bring about the change that's happening, how it's happening, why it's happening, what opportunities are opening up, and then use your profile to create these little aspects that you can turn to, that you can call upon whenever you're coming up against any challenging times. So it's going to give the attendees a really good deep dive into what the Gene Keys are, how you can use them effectively in your everyday life to be able to thrive more in really contributing your frequency to the creation of a new world. And that's what we need here, a lot more conscious creators.
Beautiful. Module 1 is called The Map, the Compass, and the Adventure. Step onto a path of self-awareness, exploring your genetic code and setting intention. Great.
So this is where we begin. So we begin with a blessing from Richard Rudd himself. He will be sharing some words to help inspire us into the course as we go forwards. And it will be where we drop in and everyone really gets to connect to their own personal map and compass. So that's your hologenetic profile. So in this first session, we'll be setting intention for where we want to come through the 7 weeks together. And we'll be looking at how to read and understand your profile, what the aspects mean, what the frequency band means, and how to really use that profile in a way that is going to support us for the next 7 weeks, where each week we will go through a different aspect of that profile, a different sphere. And I'll be relating that to our current times and the challenges that we're coming up against and how they can use that profile in a sense to get the most out of it.
Module 2, Find Serenity in Chaos, Unlocking Personal Transformation Empowerment Through Time Mastery.
So this is an old passion of mine, Stephen, time. It's something that from a young age, I was always surprised and blown away that we talk about time in society as if we knew everything about it. And then I discovered that we knew nothing about it, that time itself was such a mystery. And over the years, I've been really deeply connected to the idea of synchronicity, and which is, to me, all about time and space and how it connects and the underlying information field that is behind that. So in this one, we're going to be looking at the importance of slowing down in order to, in a sense, speed up. That if we want to move faster into a better world, then we have to master the art of slowing down on our internal world. And so in this, we're going to look at time, perception of time, the nature of time, and how that relates to the art of contemplation, slowing down, and cultivating self-awareness.
Module 3, cultivate stability in purpose, embrace meaning, transcend limitations, and embody creativity in the age of AI automation.
So this is probably going to be part of my favorite part personally. As people who know me in the work often see me behind the scenes doing a lot of the tech stuff for Gene Keys Publishing. And I'm excited about the technology that's coming in the sense that it is providing us an opportunity with artificial intelligence and all these different things. It's destroying the old synthetic purpose that our industrial revolution has created, that got us all, instead of working with our hands or doing what we love on the land, we got caught in industrial practices. And so our sense of authentic purpose faded out. But now with this new technology, it's scaring people a little bit, because I won't go into too deep, but it's intimidating. But what we're going to go into in this aspect of the course is, how is technology going to support us in really embodying an authentic sense of purpose in what we're here to be, and how AI and these other tools are actually going to be able to help us move out of this kind of synthetic purpose that we've been addicted to and begin to reconnect with our inner creative force. I truly believe, as much as AI seems like it's taking away from the creatives, that it is going to empower the creatives, that we are moving into the age of creatives, as that is something that it cannot do for us, and we need to be the ones to inspire.
Module 4, cracking the code of attraction. Uncover your unique key for manifestation as the programmer, not the program.
And this may be the favorite of the attendees, I could imagine. So in this one, we're going to go into the law of attraction, and we're going to go a little deeper, and we're going to look at it in a little more personalized way than a lot of people may have thought about it before. So we're going to be using your attractor sphere in your profile to look at how can we harness that sphere, our creativity, our sexuality, our sensitivity, our sensuality, in order to interact with our reality around us and become a really active participant in co-creating together.
Module 5, Relationship Alchemy, Part 1. Know your IQ trigger point to transform your reactions into conscious responses.
So this is where the real work starts to happen. It's in relationships, we're relational beings. So here we're going to look at a sphere called your IQ sphere. And this IQ sphere was brought and really unraveled in your life around the ages of 14 to 21. It's where our mental trigger patterns were created, our mental self-defense mechanisms came in. And so we're going to be exploring, what are your personal triggers? What is it? What pushes your buttons in relationships and causes you to put your guards up? And why is it doing it? How does it look? And how can we disengage that defense mechanism to allow more intimacy in our relationships?
Module 6, Relationship Alchemy, Part 2. Balance EQ and IQ to cultivate embodied emotional intelligence and evolve spiritually.
Beautiful. So this will be continuing on from the last week, where we look at the IQ, what triggers the mind. And as most people will notice, when your mind gets triggers, what happens? The emotions fire up, they stir up. And the bigger the trigger, the bigger the emotional storm. And the EQ in your profile is your specific key to understanding your emotional processing of this, trigger that's happened, and to release that. And so we're going to work together and show you how you can combine the IQ and the sphere of EQ together to create a contemplative key, a little sentence that you can take away that is going to give you a real powerful ally in your relationship. So when you're getting triggered and those emotions are running, you're going to be able to go, okay, I see what's happening, and be able to move through that, to stabilize that. And again, this is all about cultivating a cauldron for evolution to happen, for involution and evolution to meet together within our relationships.
And finally, Module 7, Closing Circle with special guest Richard Rudd.
So this is going to be a very special event. Richard Rudd will be joining us live. And so I thought it was such a beautiful context for him to be able to send us out onto our voyage as we go out together. And he'll be welcoming us at the port when we all come back together after the 7 weeks. And this will be a closing ceremony. Richard will be sharing some of his wisdom, which those that have had the opportunity to experience it know that he is an incredibly poetic and grounded and humble Englishman who is always bringing something special. And it will also be an amazing opportunity to be able to be witnessed in your process, to be able to share together, what you went through, what you gained from the course. And Stephen, one of the things that I find is the most powerful about any workshop, any course, anything that happens, it's in the sharing. It's at the end of a cycle, at the end of something, to be able to come together and share and be heard in an unconditional and safe way is really amazing at how suddenly people discover, often in that last session, so much that they've learned that they didn't even realize they'd learned, that they'd experienced without even realizing. So that'll bring it all together, tie it together, and give everyone a guide as to, okay, here we go. Where do we go next?
What a fascinating exploration, and I know it's going to be really transformational for everybody who joins. Again, the whole program is laid out in detail at thrivingwithgenekeys.com, thrivingwithgenekeys.com. So you get not only the 7 live sessions over 7 weeks, you're also going to get recordings of every session, both audio and video, as well as word-for-word transcripts. You have time to ask your questions directly. You're going to have weekly exercises for home. There's Facebook community to deepen the sense of community around this work, as well as small group time to discuss and apply the principles with other participants. On the page, you'll also see a number of extra bonuses that enhance your journey as well. There's a video teaching from Mark called Unleashing Ecstasy, Embracing the Mystical Potential of Gene Keys. I'm intrigued with that. You want to share a little bit more about that?
So it's something that Richard Rudd and his work introduced me to is this idea of the ecstatics. And it helped me understand that that's something that I was craving in my life, to live the life of an ecstatic. And when we look at ecstasy, often people think ecstasy is this massive smiles, amazing happiness. But if you look at the word, ecstasy is essentially to lose your mind, the control of the mind, and to become fully embodied in what it is to have a deeply spiritual human experience, to have all our senses open, our sensuality fully activated, and to be able to lose ourselves into this amazing human experience in the path of the ecstatics. So it's a little journey into unraveling that a little deeper.
It's a great bonus. On the page, you also see other bonuses as well that are enhance the journey for you. There's Purpose Rediscovered, Illuminating Paths in a Quickly Changing World. It's a whole PDF guide. And in addition, there's a special bonus you get when you sign up by midnight tonight. And this one's called Metamorphosis, Awakening the Imaginal Cell Within. There's a whole new video teaching from Mark. You want to share a little bit about Metamorphosis, which folks get when they sign up right away?
So everyone has heard the butterfly analogy. I'm sure it's one of the oldest analogies. People talk about the metamorphosis of the butterfly. And in this bonus, I take it another layer deeper into where you can really stretch that analogy out to experience where you are within that analogy and how that process really works, what role suffering plays, what role, the way we work together, etc. So this little bonus, this metamorphosis, is my mystical ramblings around, if we go even deeper into the science of the butterfly, what does that really mean to our current moment in time?
Well, that's a great extra reason to sign up right away. Really fascinating teachings there. So again, you can find the whole thing laid out in detail at thrivingwithgenekeys.com. We've kept the investment really accessible for this program. It's just 3 payments of $128, or you can save 10% when you pay in full up front with 1 payment of $349. The course is going to start on July 20th and run Thursdays at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. And I highly encourage you to go over to the page and really tune in, because even if you can't make the live time, you can still get the full value with the recordings and the transcripts and the community as well. And really, it's just about taking this practice to the next level, taking the perspectives of the gene keys and then embodying them in your life. And you'll see on the page, there's a number of great testimonials about what a stellar human being and teacher Mark is, and how he's such a powerful facilitator, directly authorized by Richard Rudd to teach this material. So you're really in for a treat, and you're going to get a deep grounding in this system that integrates multiple wisdom traditions and really applies them in a very unique way. So you are in for a treat, and you can get all the details at thrivingwithgenekeys.com, thrivingwithgenekeys.com, and you'll get that special metamorphosis bonus when you sign up by midnight tonight Pacific time. So, Mark, we're nearing the end of our time. Any final thoughts you want to share with folks who are considering going deeper with you into this work?
Yeah, I'd love to invite everyone who's watching this right now to just really drop into your body and feel, how is your body responding to this? How are your cells responding to this? And to really feel into the world around you and the possibilities. Because right now, we have an incredible opportunity to work together in a way that is better than any Hollywood movie you've ever seen, to bring true romance into our every breath, every moment, and every relationship. And it's my passion to help support people in that journey as I support myself on the process. And I would love to invite you all to join me on this 7-week course, if it aligns and speaks to you, and I'll see you there.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for all the wisdom and insight you've shared today. A really great synthesis of so much great insight. So thank you. And thank you all for joining as well. And if you'd like to go further with Mark, you're warmly welcome to do so. And you'll be in great hands at thrivingwithgenekeys.com. And you get that special bonus when you sign up by midnight tonight, Metamorphosis. So thank you, Mark. And thank you all for joining today. Many blessings.
Thank you.